G'day, Paul from Small Crown Productions here, and welcome to the Business of Art. On this channel, I dig into all of the things that we need to help us build a business around our creative work. So tips, tools, strategies, interviews, mindset, whatever I can do to help share knowledge from people who know what they're talking about so that we can do business better and make money from our creative work. So if that is something you are interested in, please consider subscribing. This video is one in a series of over 15 videos relating to tax and finance for creative people in Australia. So this is specific to Australia. It is also general advice. Always, always, always seek specific advice about your situation in your region or country where you are. What I did was ask my creative network for a question that they would love to ask a tax and finance specialist, and then I bundled them all up and took them to Matt Tucker, the principal of Creative Crunches here in Brisbane. Creative Crunches is an arts-focused accountancy firm. They know what they're talking about when it comes to Australian tax law, tax and finance for creative people. But again, general advice. Always seek specific advice to your situation. Matt was super generous to donate his time. I cannot thank him enough for taking the time out of his day to actually sit and answer these questions for us all. So with that, let's dive in to today's question. What types of tax rebates are there that we probably don't realise are available?
The thing that I would say to taxpayers is, first of all, if you're with an agent, that's kind of given and you don't have to actually worry about it because it's our job to worry about all of those. And we've got specific software that, helps to put all of those missing pieces in. If you're doing it yourself though, what I would say is just go onto the internet and search for tax offsets. If you search for tax offsets, you are going to be brought straight up to the ATO's webpage, and it starts to break down all the sort of various offsets that are there. So look, there are a range of them, but it's not like there are hundreds. Not everyone is going to have access to all of those anyway. They're offsets that are really aimed at specific things. It might be a pensioner offset, or it might be a low income offset. So if you're not a pensioner and you're not on low income, then you're not going to have access to any of those. So you can be aware of them, but you won't have them. One of the things which is fairly common though for, the people that we're talking to today is the small business tax offset. So for many of those small businesses, there is a tax offset that is available up to $1,000. Where that comes into play is if you're a small business, and today that small business definition is up to millions and millions of dollars in turnover. So it's capturing all of us here. And if you've posted income from that freelancer activity, it's positive profits, it's taxable, and you've paid tax from that income, you can, the ATO will look at the amount of tax across your whole tax return, and they will sort of isolate, this is the amount of tax that is the primary tax liability for this person. Now, how much of that has stemmed from the business activities? Because it might be several things in your tax return. And when they look at how much of that tax has come from your freelancer business, then they will give a rebate up to $1,000 worth. If the amount of tax that is sort of really generated from those business activities is only $700, you will get a rebate up to $700, but they won't give you all the way up to $1,000. But for the person who's paid maybe $1,500 worth of tax, or been levied $1,500 worth of tax from that business activity, they would have access to the entire $1,000. So that is something that comes through. Now, there are sometimes labels that need to be put through in tax returns. So some of these things are automatic and the ATO are going to pick them up, but in the vast majority of cases, you need to be properly completing a tax return and putting in at various labels in the tax return as to whether or not one of these tax offsets happens to apply. So it's like you really do need to be checking certain boxes, saying yes or no here and there, so that you're giving the ATO everything, so that it's not actually getting incorrectly missed when the ATO assesses it. I think there's a misconception that once that tax return has come back from the ATO, that it's almost gone through an audit type process, and nothing could be further from the truth. We get errors in client assessment notices all the time, and that can just be human error. their systems are getting better all the time. Don't get me wrong, but it is one of those things where don't just sit back and think it will all come out through the ATO and I'm okay. It's up to the taxpayer to be aware of all of these things and submitting tax returns correctly and putting these things on notice so that the ATO's got all of that information at hand and hopefully won't make a mistake.
There we go. Thanks again to Matt Tucker from Creative Crunches for taking the time to answer these questions. If you have a tax and finance question of your own that you would like to ask, please pop it in the comments below and I will do everything I can to get that answered, or link you to one of the other videos where it may already have been asked and answered. Also in the description below is a link to the playlist that contains all of these tax and finance questions, so you can dig through there and see if your question has already been answered. And of course, it would be fantastic if you could like this video, subscribe to the channel, but most importantly, if you got something of value out of this, there is a good chance you will know somebody else who can as well. Please share it with them, tag them in the comments, whatever you've got to do, pay it forward so that we can keep helping each other out. Thanks very much. I'll see you on the next one.